Good day, American Republic. We're going to get to it quickly. You were supposed to read 400 through 403, and we didn't get to that material yesterday because we wanted to keep it kind of short. So we're going to go into it real quickly. America was sitting on the sidelines. We didn't get involved in this war at first. We're just kind of watching it. But even here in the United States, we had already chosen a side. In other words, if we jumped in, we know what side we would jump on. And your book gives reasons for our interest in the war. First of all, our heart, our sentiment belonged with the Allies. America has always sided with people that were in the right. You know, if a country over here in a foreign land goes into another country for no reason, then we get angry about it. And we want to side with the good guys, so to speak. The Allies were the good guys. So our sentiment is with them. Second of all, our bread was buttered, so to speak, with the Allies. Our trade, we traded more with Britain and France than we did these other countries. Of course. I mean, that's where most of our foreign shipments went to. So therefore, our wallets, our pocketbooks are attached to these countries. And your book mentions this, and this is going to cause a lot of problems for the United States later on. We would ship out grain and cotton and some other goods and supplies to Great Britain. And at first they paid cash, but then their cash supply ran low. And they said, hey, could you loan us these things? We'll pay you back. Well, they don't. And neither does any other country America helped during the start of World War I. In fact, there was only one country after World War I that actually paid us back, and it wasn't any of the big ones. So this is going to cause some financial problems for the United States, some deficit problems for the United States. And also at the end of the war, Germany is going to be requested to pay for the cost of the war. It's an astronomical figure, and they're not going to pay, and that's going to cause some world tension and world economic problems later on. The book says that the United States had loaned more than $1 billion to Great Britain and loaned France more than $300 million. A lot of money back then in this era. The third reason your book gives for us having an interest in this, and especially the Allied side, was Allied propaganda. We got our news from overseas from Britain and France. That's just the way it worked. We didn't get our news from Austria-Hungary. We didn't get our news from Germany. We got our news from basically Britain, if it was overseas. Same thing today. We have Sky News. If you want to find out what's going on in the world, you look at Sky News or some organization like that. And they give us the news from overseas. And so we're hearing about their cause, their side. And so, of course, we believe that and take interest in that, and rightly so. Another reason the book gives for our interest in the war, Germany's treatment of other countries harmed its relationship with America. The way Germany went into these countries, the way they treated these other countries, again, America does not like a bully. America does not like to see other people mistreated. That's just our nature. And I believe that's something God has implanted in us. You look at Kuwait back when George Herbert Walker Bush was in the White House. Kuwait was invaded and taken over by Iraq, a guy by the name of Saddam Hussein. Now, yes, oil played a part in that, but also just the fact that their neighbor went in and took them over. Well, we couldn't stand for that, and we went in and we freed Kuwait, and we've always been that way as Americans. So we had an interest because of the way Germany was treating countries. Another reason, the fifth reason, and biggest difficulty in maintaining neutrality, was Britain's and Germans' violations of America's neutral rights at sea. Britain was a small nation, so it was totally dependent on overseas trade for raw materials. The United States wanted to continue trade with Germany too, but all sea trade with Europe was put in jeopardy by the naval strategies of Britain and Germany. So that is another reason for our interest in the war. It talks about violations of America's Neutrality Act. When you're neutral, they're supposed to leave you alone. I mean, you're neutral. You don't have a dog in the hunt. You don't have a stake in it. And so you're supposed to be treated as thus. Well, the British were ready to seize anything that could be useful to Germany. America's ships were stopped at sea in order to go to British ports for searches. Not good at all. But Britain was not the only country, your book says, to receive America's anger. Germany sought to cut British imports. And this sounds very familiar to something if you remember when Thomas Jefferson was president. We saw something very similar to this. Germany was not wanting Britain to get anything, and Germany, of course, thought we're shipping war supplies to Britain. So Germany chose to use unrestricted submarine warfare. In other words, they said if we saw a ship, Germany sees a ship, they may fire upon it with a submarine. And they did. May of 1915, a German U-boat sank the RMS Lusitania. And you've heard of the Lusitania before. There were American passengers on board, and it ruffled our feathers. And so America starts to bow up during this time, and we start to get our defenses up. And then in early 1917, the German foreign minister, this is what really did it. The German foreign minister to Mexico. He sent Arthur Zimmerman. He was the German foreign minister. He sent a telegraph to the German minister in Mexico. And he said, I tell you what, if the United States jumps in, if Mexico will side with us and attack the United States, we'll give you back Texas, and we'll give you back several other territories that America had gotten. And that really, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, we'll give those back to you if you'll help us, if America jumps in. Well, the good thing about it, this telegram was actually caught. They absconded it, and America found out about it. And because of that, people were able to pressure the president at the time, President Woodrow Wilson, to finally get a declaration of war. In addition to that, German submarines sank 3 more American merchant ships. Now, back at home, you've got to remember Woodrow Wilson, he was a peace lover. He was also a liberal. Many accounts say he was also a racist. If you'll read history about that and dig in depth, you'll see a lot of that. Woodrow Wilson was not a good president by any stretch of the imagination. But he did not want to get involved in this war at all. But America back home, they had enough. I mean, if you're threatening us with Mexico and saying they'll get some territories back if they side against us, and you're sinking ships, American ships, and American passengers are dying on luxury liners and things of that nature, we had a bait of it. We were done with it. And so finally, April the 2nd, 1917, Woodrow Wilson went to Congress and got a declaration of war. And we declared war on Germany. And so we joined the fighting. One other thing I want to mention, your book, I don't believe talks about this in depth, but the Espionage and the Sedition Acts. A couple of things. This is where you have to be careful when you're dealing with war times, when you're dealing with things like are going on now. You have to watch the government because they will do things that could take away your freedom. A couple of things that they did during World War II. They were worried about disloyalty of Americans because we had a lot of people, let's face it, that had German ancestry. And so we did not want people disloyal to America. So they passed a couple of things. The Espionage Act, it discouraged, or it made it illegal to discourage loyalty to the military or to send treasonous mail. So in other words, you could not send aid, and I agree with the Espionage Act. In other words, you couldn't commit espionage. Here's the one, though, that caused a lot of problems. The Sedition Act. The Sedition Act said that Americans could not obstruct the sale of war bonds or make harmful statements about the U.S. government, the Constitution, the flag, or the military uniform. Pretty vague stuff. You know, you and I are talking, and I say, man, the government has really done this or that, and somebody hears it, I may be under arrest. That's not American. That's not constitutional. And you have to watch things of that nature, but it was worded so vaguely that they were able to get away with it. So we'll deal with that in time, and there's some dealings with the U.S. Supreme Court about it later on. But you have to watch the government during times of war, times of panic, times of trouble, because they'll slip some stuff in on you. Just trust me on that. Hope you have a great weekend. Do not do any assignments today, but I do want to make sure you've read up to this point. When we return on Monday, we are going to talk about the United States at war, and it's several pages long. And we're going to cover as much material as we can on Monday, because I would like to get a test in next week. So listen, have a great weekend. Stay safe. Love y'all. Miss y'all. See ya Monday.